On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we discuss the Lightning's loss in OT, a disappointing ending to what turned out to be a very good start. The Lightning now sit 3-1 in the series. We'll recap that game, all that and more. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I would like to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for making this your first watch of the day. On this episode, we're recapping this only really minutes after the Lightning's 3-2 loss in overtime in Game 4, sending the series back to Colorado for Friday night with the Lightning down 3-1 in this. So, initial thoughts, shocked that you're really, with the way that the game started, I really thought that, especially with that goal by Cirelli 39 seconds in, and great to see him get going, goals in his last two games now, and with later on you kind of see, unfortunately, with him, he got cut by a blade during the game. So unfortunately, you don't want that happening to a guy, and it's unfortunate for that to happen when he's just looks like he's starting to get going. And yeah, initial reaction after this game is shock. I mean, everything pointed in favor of the Lightning winning this game. Whenever the Lightning get off to a good start, we've spoken about this on the pod many times, is that this Lightning team thrives off momentum. So especially when they score first, and I always say that their performance in the first 5 minutes of the first period really tells a lot about what kind of game and what kind of team we're going to get from them, what kind of performance we're going to get. And everything went well. And even after the McKinnon goal, which tied the game up on the power play, which I wasn't overly concerned at that point. It was early on in the second period, only 5 minutes in, and really my thought process at that point was that this was a weird goal. If you didn't watch the game or you don't remember the highlight, McKinnon kind of got turned around up in front of Vasilevsky in front of the net, and it was a shot that just went off his skate and past Vasilevsky. And I wasn't worried. Just because I don't think goaltenders or even teams in general really take a lot of stock in those kind of situations when the goals are scored in such a manner. So moving on in the second period, and just doing a quick recap in case you forgot, if you're watching this a little later on, whether it's right after the game or early in the morning on Thursday morning. Just overall state of shock, really. When it comes down to it, I really thought this team, just the way they were playing very well, and unfortunate, you could see it, and I hate to say this because I feel like it doesn't tell the whole story, and I never want to use this as an excuse, but fatigue and the amount of games the Lightning have played up until this point in the playoffs did play a factor. We're starting to see it really settle in, especially as these games get deeper and deeper and more grueling. We saw it tonight. I mean, listen, Lightning were at one point in front of this game. Once McKinnon scored, Hedman had that highlight reel goal, dangled it past Darcy Kemper, who kind of had a weird night in front of net, blocked a lot of shots, took a lot of shots and to the head. But yeah, at that point, I really thought the Lightning were going to capitalize off of that. This was still in the second period. It was only 10 minutes into the second. And I really thought we were going to see maybe a couple more goals. At least one more goal out of Tampa before the period ended. I feel like whenever they score a goal like that in that manner, I feel like they always get a ton of energy. And you didn't really see it. when I sat back and kind of looked at the numbers and just, kind of ingested everything that went on from that period during the second intermission, I kind of realized the trend was happening at that point. I realized that um, you kind of saw slowly but surely Colorado starting to get some momentum, starting to have a lot more offensive zone presence. And obviously, that's not something that the Lightning really want in a team that forechecks as well as Colorado. And we saw a whole lot of that in the third period. And I got to tip my cap to Colorado in this one. It seems whenever Tampa was starting to really get things going, they just weathered the storm and slowly but surely, almost like a chessboard, creeped their way up the ice. And they played well. They matched the Lightning shift for shift for the most part in this game, especially in the third period off that weird another strange goal. I believe it was Sturm that took the initial shot for Colorado, but it deflected off Cogliano going in, tying things up 2 minutes in. And this was just, you kind of saw from that point on Tampa starting to kind of fade. I was surprised, believe it or not, that that this game actually went into overtime. I kind of felt the way the tide was turning in this game. I really thought that Colorado was going to score later on. It was going to be like maybe within the last minute or so. But Tampa held on. Vasilevsky kept them in this game. And really, that's why Vasilevsky is the best on the planet, because I really think that and I'm not just saying, like, even if the Lightning did end up winning this game, I still feel like that Vasilevsky would have been the reason why Tampa ended up winning this game if they did. Just like the same reason why this game went to overtime and the game lasted as long as it did, because let's face it, once we got to overtime, Tampa was just completely wiped out. You saw it. There was the shifts, and we all know with playoff hockey, especially in OT, 5-on-5, the shifts get a lot longer. You want to stretch guys out, and we really saw Colorado's rest. They had 8 days off before they went into this final, and up until that point, before the finals, they didn't really play a lot of games. Remember, they swept Nashville. The series, I believe, against St. Louis, that went to 6, and then they swept Edmonton. So really not a whole ton of games to be played, where on the other side of that, Tampa played 7 in the first, 4 in the second, and then 7 again in the Eastern Conference Finals. So really, I think this was a very good game played by both teams. I thought Tampa came out with a lot of energy, did everything the right way. A lot of guys were banged up in this one, but ended up coming back into the game. There are some things that Tampa could have done better in this one, that I think that at certain points they kind of just gave opportunities away, or just held on to the puck too much. And I'll talk about that in the second part of the show. But first, I want to talk about our first sponsor of the day, and that is rockauto.com. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, just with everything going up in today's economy, you want to spend the least amount of money as possible. And Rock Auto, especially if it's on your car, Rock Auto is the place for you. Save time and money, most importantly, when you use Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto, but most importantly, besides spending less money, the most important thing to me when I look at businesses, what kind of people run those businesses. And Rock Auto is a family business serving the do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, so go to explore their easy-to-use website today to find a solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On, and they're how did you hear about us box, so we know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So moving on to, I spoke about a lot of the things that I liked that I saw Tampa do in this game. And like I said before, Vasilevsky was really the reason why this game lasted as long as it did. I think if you have maybe somebody else. I'm not going to play the what if game in terms of if we had a other goaltender. No, I'm not doing that. But I think if it was any other goaltender, I think this game would have ended in the third period after, in regulation. So, yeah, just some of the good things, though, in a loss like this, it's tough. Lightning are now on the brink, down 3-1 in the series, going back to Colorado on Friday, and they have to win. That's it. They either win or the season's over. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of reflection from now until Friday night to where this team is going to look at some of the things that were done correctly in this game and some of the things that weren't done correctly in this game. And I always find it important, especially this season, just by the way this team has played and the struggles that they have had, that you always, with a loss, you always have to look at the things you did well. Unless for game 2, where really the only thing that they did well was not have any major injuries. That was really the only thing that they did well for game 2. But tonight, I really thought this team did a very good job in the neutral zone for the most part. They changed things up. They didn't allow Colorado to consistently be in the offensive zone and press up high, which we saw Colorado do a very good job of in games 1 and 2. But and you saw Tampa was starting to kind of figure it out as they went along. They did a very good job in game 3, obviously winning that game in convincing fashion. I just feel like in the same sense with that, you can't really look at games 2 and 3 in a really serious sense in terms of how that would potentially dictate the rest of the series. Just because in those games, I feel like the score is so lopsided, and I feel like the losing team in both games, just what their full potential was not there. The energy was not there. They were just off. Every team has nights when they're just off their game, and Tampa and Colorado, in the games that they lost, games 2 and 3, those teams just had an off night, and that's basically what it came down to, as well as the goaltenders. What you saw tonight and what you saw in game 1 is really, when we look back on this series, whether their season ends Friday night or they extend it into a game 6 or a game 7 or whatever the case may be, we're going to look at those games and any subsequent games that are similar as the games that really, when you look at the meat and potatoes of this series, that is what you're going to look at for context. So what I thought they did a very good job other than that was the way they cleared the zone. Usually in games 1, 2, and 3, you would see this Tampa team clear it up along the boards. I mean, every team does that. But they did a very good job, because you saw earlier in the series, Colorado would kind of cut them off along the boards. Colorado does a fantastic job cleaning up along the boards, and so does Tampa. But that's where a lot of times Colorado would force those neutral zone turnovers. But so Tampa kind of changed things around, and instead of just flipping it up the ice along the boards, flipping, just throwing it up in the air, which I liked, because that kind of allowed Tampa to have more clean shift changes, where Colorado wouldn't be able to get a lot of momentum right away back into the offensive zone. I really thought that was a smart move. You kind of see, and this is what every Lightning game in which they struggle, in which they lose, they tend to, down the line as the game progresses, they tend to get away from what worked. And I'm very curious, and it wasn't as egregious as in previous games where Tampa just would just flat out stop doing things. This game was more so, it was a fading digression, which I, once again, earlier in the episode, I really thought that had to do with fatigue. But I'm not going to use fatigue as an overall excuse. You still got to go out there. You still got to play the game. As long as there's minutes and seconds left on that clock, you still got to go out there and play games. One player that really stuck out to me tonight, and I feel like he hasn't really got a ton of credit, considering he has really been thrown in a big role um, over the series, and that has been and parts of the Rangers series as well has been Riley Nash. He's been filling in Braden Point's spot with Braden Point dealing with his injury, and being out of the lineup and then coming in and then getting pulled out of the lineup. Riley Nash has really done a fantastic job. Only 9 minutes of ice time tonight, one takeaway, one hit, and one shot on net. But it's not so much what he does with the puck; it's what he has done off of the puck. Any play in which you see the line that he is on, they're swarming around. They're doing a lot of things. And the thing about him that really impressed me, especially tonight, was that you could kind of tell in certain situations, maybe during the regular season, he kind of wasn't getting his footing right in terms of just being in the flow of the game. And there would be often times where he would kind of get stuck in a very weird situation, in a weird spot on the ice, to where that could potentially lead to a goal or a turnover. Tonight, he did a fantastic job. He was moving his feet constantly. He was always in the area of the play. And obviously he's a professional athlete. He's a professional hockey player. Of course, he's doing a lot of things right. But for a guy who has kind of just not really been a fit, has been, I would guess at best, a footnote on this team all season long, in and out of the lineup when guys are injured, and then being thrown into a huge situation, one of the biggest series and games of the year. Even though it ended in a loss, I thought Riley Nash played a fantastic game. And the other thing is with that is that I fully expect him to bring the same energy and productiveness to Friday. For any Lightning fans that are looking at this and saying, well, he didn't really do anything, I don't know why you're making a big deal about it. Well, Riley Nash, his job is not to go, even though he is filling in for Braden Point, he's not going in to do Braden Point's job. That's left up to the other guys, the other big names, the other scorers on this team. Guys like Alex Killorn, who has yet to get going, which, it's unfortunate we have not seen him score a goal this entire postseason, which I really thought when on the ESPN broadcast, when he was picked as one of the overtime scorers, I really thought that was just kind of, the universe telling us that Alex Killorn was finally going to get his moment and score a goal to tie the series up. But obviously, we're going to have to wait another game for possibly that happening. But yes, Riley Nash doing a phenomenal job. Definitely going to hopefully see him do that. And if the Lightning can extend the series, they were saying before the game that it looks like Braden Point should be available, according to John Cooper, should be available by Game 6. So, we'll have to extend the series and see what happens if Point's not 100% or not. Other than that, I thought this team did a very good job offensively for the most part. In the start of the game, the first period, and then parts of the second period. Other than that, as the game progressed, you could, like I said, this group started to fade. This really started to become more of just weathering the storm, more on the defensive side of things in OT. And you could only play that long for so long. And I was tweeting back and forth with a listener, and they were saying, they weren't really optimistic about this ending well for Tampa. And I said, in that kind of situation, all it takes is a lucky bounce your way, going the other way. And unfortunately, the Lightning did not get that. So we'll wrap things up, talk about some of the individual performances in this game. And then, we'll just wrap things up with that. But first, I'm going to talk about our last sponsor of the day is BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest developments, league reviews, news, including this year's NHL playoffs, as well as Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. And BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcast news this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, if you haven't already, if you're a new listener, or a new watcher on YouTube, first of all, thank you for joining us. And please go ahead, and if you don't know where to follow us on social media, we are at LO_Lightning on Twitter and LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. You could find me on Twitter at DenkyDank, DenkyD8NK. You tweet to me questions, comments about the game, whatever about the team. Usually I try to get back to all of you as soon as I can. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and hit that notification bell below. And if you have a question for the show that you want answered on the next episode or whenever, go ahead and drop it below. We're going to try and so we could have more engagement with you guys and have you guys be more a part of the show. So yeah, some of the individual performances, other than Riley Nash, because I really had to give a little bit of alone time to Riley Nash because he has really played fantastic. Like I said, he's not, even though he is replacing Braden Point, he's not here to do Braden Point's job. And that cannot be overstated. So looking at some of the other performances tonight, I already stated Alex Killorn really needs to get it going. 3 shots on goal tonight, 1 block, 1 giveaway. He has a 1 +1 in the plus-minus department. Really don't care about that. Andre Palat, really thought he was another one I kind of had a feeling I thought was going to come up big in OT. Has the most overtime goals in Lightning history in the playoffs. Nick Paul, another one. I think that's everybody's favorite player on this team right now. Since day one being traded from Ottawa, really has just endeared himself so much to Lightning fans everywhere. And he has done a fantastic job. UFA after this year, I'd be shocked if they don't bring him back. But that's conversation for the offseason. We're discussing the final right now. Anthony Cirelli, like I stated at the top of the show, but I want to talk about again, has really been struggling. And we all, if you've been following this team for a while, you know Anthony, he's always one of those players that is always in the thick of it. He's always doing something, whether it be on the puck or off the puck. And he's a very good two-way to forward, and you could see that. And what I think was part of the reason why the Lightning struggled, especially in the third period and then subsequently in overtime, was if you don't remember, if you just didn't know, Cirelli was involved. I believe it was early in the second period. He fell. He took a weird spill behind the net, and at first I thought it was his wrist. I thought he fell weird on his hand just by the way he flung off his glove. I assumed that's what it was. And then it turned out he got cut on the arm by a skate blade. And I was really worried at that point, just, is he going to be able to come back? Because he's going to have to get stitches wrapped up, and, the chances of those stitches ripping open during the course of the game. Didn't take any face-offs afterwards, which I think really hurt the Lightning down the road. He's one of the best face-off guys on this team, was 67% from the circle tonight. That's the best on the team. But he did a very good job. Scored a goal in the last game, and then he scored a goal tonight. Did a fantastic job getting things going for the Lightning early on. One of those guys that bona fide playmaker, just gets better and better with every game. One of those guys that definitely learns from things that he does not do well or makes mistakes on. The one guy, though, that was very surprising and very quiet tonight was Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov, only 2 shots on net tonight. Wasn't very active. There was some concern after the last game when he got hurt. I believe it was Taves, Devon Taves, cross-checked him, nasty spill into the boards for Kucherov there, came immediately off the ice afterwards in pain, had trouble walking. But tonight I didn't feel like he was that was inhibiting him from his performance. Now he's probably just the way he fell. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something with his hip or something with his leg. But my issue with Kuch tonight, and we've spoken about this before with him, was that there are often times when he, because he has all the talent in the world. We know what Nikita Kucherov is capable of. And he has been plagued by injuries. So, the stats don't always reflect the level of player he is compared to other guys in the league. But we know what he's capable of. But when you're one of the top players on this team and he definitely is, him and Stamkos. And you play 22 minutes plus, almost 23, and you have 2 shots on net, and that's it. And the shots on net weren't exactly danger chances for Kemper tonight. I kind of have an issue with that. And that was kind of the issue I had with Point as well, being out there not 100%. You saw there was flashes of vintage Braden Point in terms of being that playoff player, but not being able to do 100% out there. And I'm curious if that was kind of the same thing with Cooch tonight. But at the same time, you know, and I'm sure John Cooper feels this way, and I'm sure Cooch feels this way as well. If Cooch doesn't play, who do you put out there? Alex Barré-Boulet. Other than that, I mean, there's really not. You have Point out, you have Kucherov out at that point. If Cooch didn't play, and you're a very tough position there. And then the last player that really stuck out to me, because really what this came down to is that I think that we kind of all figured this fatigue issue with Tampa was going to happen. So I think it was very imperative for this team to not only get started early, but to also try and tack on as early as possible. And that's why I was saying after the Hedman goal, not only did I think it was going to happen, Tampa picking up another goal, but I really thought at that point in time that they needed to, because you could kind of see the tank kind of starting to really get empty there. Steven Stamkos, 2 shots on net, really didn't do much other than block shots tonight, which obviously you can't understate how valuable that is in the playoffs. And that was a huge difference maker down the road. And other than Andre Vasilevsky being in net and doing his thing, that was the other thing that really helped the Lightning out a lot tonight. But you're one of the top scorers on the team. Didn't see a whole ton of shots set up for him, especially in that circle. And I think a lot of that, like I said, Lightning were just at that point in time after the Hedman goal. You started to see really not a whole lot of energy coming out of this team consistently. So, hopefully the Lightning could figure things out around that. I think what we need to do in terms of for Game 5, really look at what worked in Game 3, as well as the early stages of Game 3 and tonight in Game 4. So you really need to look at that, think about what worked, and really not only hold the Lightning at bay, hold the Avalanche at bay, but really try to tack on and get that offense early on and try and score in clusters. And as well, we'll talk about all of it on tomorrow's episode, but other than that, really limit the power plays, because as we've seen throughout this series, Colorado is lethal on the power play. So make sure to like and subscribe to the pod. We are available wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form, and we're also available on YouTube. If you're watching this, you already know that. So hit that subscribe button and hit that thumbs up and the notification bell. So as soon as the newest episode drops, you will be notified. So that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.